Let's get started with today's story. It all began with a trip, Stephanie's dream vacation to Europe. She'd been planning it for years, saving up, collecting guidebooks, watching travel shows on TV. "I just need a break," she'd said, her voice carrying the weight of a decade of routine. "I'll be gone for a week, and when I get back, we'll be better than ever. Rebecca, Rachel, and I are going together with a travel group. It's all planned out, and we'll have a guide the entire time." I'd nodded, smiled, encouraged her. "You deserve it, Stephanie. Go enjoy yourself." The truth was, I didn't mind her going. Work had been brutal lately, and a little space sounded like a good idea for both of us, or at least that's what I told myself. The first few days she was gone, everything felt normal. We texted every day, exchanged photos, and kept in touch whenever we could. She sent me pictures of the Eiffel Tower, the canals of Venice, and plates of exotic-looking food. She looked happy, radiant even. I missed her, but I also relished the quiet. It was during the last couple of days that things started to shift. Her messages became shorter, less frequent. Calls went unanswered, and when she finally did reply, her tone seemed distant. I chalked it up to the time difference, or maybe she was just tired, but a nagging feeling began to creep in. When she came home, I was waiting at the airport with flowers. She looked different. Her hair was styled in a way I'd never seen, and there was a new confidence in her step. She hugged me tightly, almost too tightly, and kissed me on the cheek. "How was it?" I asked as we walked to the car. "Amazing," she said, her voice almost too bright. "Europe is everything I dreamed of and more." Her answers were vague, her stories rushed. Something was off, but I didn't push. I told myself I was imagining things. Later that night, as I sat on the couch watching TV, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Rebecca, one of Stephanie's friends who'd been with her on the trip. "David, I need to see you tomorrow. It's important," she wrote. Rebecca. She'd always been complicated. She had a way of looking at me with a gaze that lingered just a little too long, her eyes carrying something more than friendliness. When Stephanie wasn't around, even just for a moment, like if she went to the kitchen to grab something, Rebecca would find a way to get close to me. Too close. There was a time she leaned in, her face inches from mine, as if she wanted to kiss me. I'd stepped back, brushing it off awkwardly, determined not to betray my wife. So when I saw Rebecca's message, my stomach twisted. I couldn't shake the unease it brought, but I told myself it was better left unanswered. Whatever she had to say, I didn't want to hear it. I put my phone down, determined to focus on Stephanie and not let anything else distract me. But just a couple of days later, things started to take a turn. I'd come home early from work, hoping to surprise her with dinner. As I walked through the door, I heard her voice, low and urgent, speaking quickly into the phone. "I told you it's over. I can't talk right now," she said, before hanging up abruptly. When she saw me, her face flushed. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just a friend," she said too quickly, from the trip. "Which friend?" I pressed. "Just someone I met in a tour group," she said, brushing past me. "I'm going to take a shower." Later that night, I sat on the couch, my mind spinning as I replayed the events of the evening, the way I'd caught Stephanie on the phone, the rushed words she'd said, and the strange way she'd shut me out. It all felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through my fingers. That's when my phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from Rebecca again. My heart skipped a beat as I read her text. "David, I need to talk to you. It's important. It's about Stephanie. Can we meet tomorrow?" The urgency in her message and the fact that she wanted to tell me something important about my wife made me uneasy, like she knew something I didn't. "Me a chance?" Then she grasped at my hands, desperate. "I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I promise. Please don't give up on us." I didn't say a word. Instead, I turned, walked to the shelf, and grabbed our marriage certificate and wedding photo. Stephanie froze, watching in disbelief as I tore both in half right in front of her. Her sobs turned into a wail, but I remained cold, detached. "It's over," I said firmly. "I'll file for divorce." There's no going back after what you've done. Nothing will ever be the same. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, but I didn't care. The trust, the love, the foundation of everything we had, it was gone. I grabbed a few of my things, clothes, my laptop, and a couple of personal items, and left the house. I didn't care about anything else. I couldn't stay there, not after what she had done. I needed to get away. I went to my friend Jake's house, told him everything that had happened. His jaw dropped when I finished the story. Man, I had no idea. He trailed off, shaking his head. I'm sorry, David. That's messed up. He offered me a drink and a place to crash for a few days. I needed to think, to get away from everything. Listen, my cousin knows a really good lawyer, Jake added after a moment, taking a swig of beer. He can help you with the divorce. No questions asked. I'll get you the number if you want. I nodded, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. I'll call him tomorrow. The next day, just as I was getting myself together, my phone buzzed. It was Rebecca. Hey, David, she said, her voice light but with an edge of concern. I know you've been through a lot. If you want to go out or just need someone to talk to, I'm here for you. I was taken aback for a moment, but the loneliness, the anger, the emptiness, it all hit me like a wave. I needed to escape, if only for a little while. Yeah, I replied, my voice quieter than I intended. I'd like that. We met at a bar downtown. The dim lights, the music, the buzz of conversation. It felt like a good place to drown out the chaos in my mind. Rebecca and I found a quiet corner, a booth away from the crowd. She was closer than I expected, her presence calming, but there was an energy between us, something unspoken. You don't deserve any of this, David, she said softly, looking into my eyes with an intensity that made me uncomfortable, and yet I couldn't look away. You deserve so much better than what Stephanie did to you. It's not right. I swallowed, the sting of it still fresh in my chest. I don't know what to do anymore. I thought I had everything, and now it's all shattered. Rebecca leaned in, her voice dropping. I get it. I've always gotten it. I know what you're going through, and I've always wanted you, David. I've wanted you for a long time. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a jolt of confusion. Rebecca had always been my wife's friend, someone I saw only in passing, but the way she was looking at me now, it was different. I'd give up my friendship with Stephanie for you, she continued, her words slow and deliberate, if it meant we could be together. The words hung in the air between us, and I could feel the tension building. I didn't know what to say. The grief, the anger, the betrayal, they all collided with something else, something raw and real. Before I could process it, Rebecca's lips were on mine. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but it quickly deepened as everything else faded away. I didn't pull back. In that moment, the world seemed distant. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless, conflicted, and lost in a whirlwind of emotions. I didn't know what I was doing, but it felt like something I needed, something to fill the void if only for a moment. But as the fog began to lift, reality set in. I knew things couldn't stay the way they were. I had already taken the first steps toward moving on, and it was time to follow through. The divorce proceedings were swift. I called Jake's cousin, who put me in touch with a lawyer, and before I knew it, papers were being filed. Stephanie didn't fight me on it. Maybe she realized she couldn't win this battle. It was clear to me that there was no going back, no fixing what she'd broken. Rebecca and I grew closer in the weeks that followed. She was there when I needed someone to talk to, someone who understood the pain I was going through. We spent late nights together, talking, laughing, and comforting each other. Slowly, the walls I had built around my heart started to come down. One afternoon, I was at Rebecca's house. We'd been spending more time together recently, and it felt like things between us were beginning to shift. I couldn't deny that I was starting to feel something real for her. I was sitting on the couch when I heard a knock at the door. Rebecca got up to answer it, and I didn't think much of it at first. But then the door opened, and there stood Stephanie, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. I was still wearing a robe, and when she saw me, her expression twisted with pain. David, her voice cracked, and I could hear the raw emotion in it. What is this? What the hell is going on here? I didn't say anything. There was no need to explain. There was nothing left to say. Stephanie's gaze flickered between Rebecca and me, her eyes searching for something to hold on to, but I wasn't that person anymore, and she was beginning to see it. Rebecca, standing firm and calm, finally spoke up. What do you want, Stephanie? Stephanie's face twisted with disbelief. I knew it. I knew you'd be with her. She stepped into the room, her voice shaking with anger and hurt. How could you? After everything we had, you were the one I wanted. I made a mistake, but please, David, please forgive me. I'll do anything. I'm begging you. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned toward me, her breath coming in ragged gasps. I was wrong. I regret it every day. I'm sorry. I need you back. Please, David, we can fix this. We can start over. But I just stood there, silent. The anger and the hurt that I'd felt for so long were now a part of the past. I had already made my decision, and so had she. Rebecca stepped forward, her voice soft but unwavering. Stephanie, it's over. He's not coming back to you. He's made his choice. Stephanie's face crumpled with pain as she looked at Rebecca, then back at me. You. How dare you take my husband from me? You were my friend. Her voice broke, and without another word, she turned and stumbled toward the door. As the door slammed shut behind her, a heavy silence settled in the room. It was over. No more lies, no more guilt, just the quiet that followed the storm. Rebecca and I continued to build something new, something real. She was there for me in ways Stephanie never had been, and I found myself falling for her, not out of spite or revenge, but because it just felt right. As for Stephanie, I never spoke to her again. It was done, and with Rebecca by my side, I knew that I could finally move on.